The story I've shared with you is a reminder that sometimes the hardest, yet most empowering choice is to let go of relationships that no longer serve us. For so long, I sought approval, love, and acceptance from my family, thinking that's what I needed to feel worthy. But what I've learned is that true strength comes from within. It's realizing that my worth isn't defined by anyone else's view of me, especially when that view is shaped by manipulation or neglect. Just like I did, you don't have to stay in a place where you're not respected. Letting go doesn't mean weakness. It means taking control of your own happiness. If you've ever felt invisible or rejected, I want you to know your voice matters and your happiness is in your hands. Don't be afraid to speak your truth and walk away from situations that diminish you. If my story resonates with you, I encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to hear more stories about courage, self-discovery, and standing up for yourself, be sure to follow. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. The room was eerily quiet as Lily stood frozen, unable to process what had just unfolded. The weight of her actions hung heavily in the air, and for the first time, I saw her vulnerability. She had always been the golden child, the one who was never questioned, but now her carefully crafted image was shattered. It was a moment of painful clarity for everyone in the room, including my mother. "I can't defend you anymore," she whispered, her voice breaking. Lily's face flushed with anger, but there was no one left to protect her. Ethan, his voice steady but filled with pain, continued. "You thought you could control everything, but the truth has come out, and there's no going back." Lily's anger flared as she shouted, "This isn't over!" But the room had already made its decision. As she stormed out, her wedding gown trailing behind her, the reality of the situation settled in. This wasn't just the collapse of her marriage. It was the unraveling of the lies she had built her entire life around. In the days that followed, I found a quiet sense of peace within myself. The truth had been exposed, and I didn't need to fight for recognition anymore. Sometimes, the hardest but most freeing decision is to walk away. It wasn't about getting an apology or validation anymore. It was about knowing that I could finally choose myself. True family is built on respect, not manipulation, and it was time for me to find where I truly belonged. Lily froze, her confident facade crumbling in an instant. She had always been the center of attention, the one everyone admired, but now her carefully constructed image was falling apart. "What? What are you talking about?" she stammered, her voice trembling, but I could see the guilt in her eyes. Ethan stood tall, his voice unwavering as he repeated, "I saw everything, Lily. The texts, the lies. You've been planning to manipulate me, to control everything. It's over." The room was silent, except for the sound of Lily's shallow breaths. My mother, who had always defended Lily, looked from her daughter to Ethan, her face pale, her eyes wide with shock. "Ethan, this is ridiculous," Lily snapped, trying to regain her composure. "These are just jokes, silly messages between friends. You're taking this way too seriously." But Ethan wasn't buying it anymore. "It's not just the messages, Lily. It's the lies. It's how you've treated me, how you've treated my family. And now I see how you've treated Sarah." He turned to look at me, his gaze softening. "I'm sorry, Sarah," he said, and for the first time I saw true sincerity in his eyes. "I didn't know." Lily glared at me, her anger shifting to something darker. "This is all your fault," she hissed, pointing a shaking finger at me. "You've always been jealous, trying to tear me down." But I didn't flinch. "No, Lily," I said quietly, my voice firm. "You did this to yourself. No one else." The tension in the room was unbearable, and I could see the disbelief in my father's eyes as he turned toward Lily, his face hardening. Finally, my mother spoke, her voice shaky but resolute. "Lily, I can't defend you anymore." The tension in the hallway was palpable as Ethan absorbed the shocking messages on his phone. Celeste and I stood silently, giving him space to process the betrayal unfolding before him. Finally, Ethan exhaled sharply and turned to face me, his expression one of hurt and confusion. "I can't believe this," he muttered, his voice cracking slightly. "She's been planning this all along. I never saw it." I could see the anger bubbling up inside him now, mixed with disbelief. He clenched his jaw and looked at his mother. "What do I do now?" Celeste placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You stand up for yourself, Ethan. You don't let her control you anymore. You deserve the truth." With a deep breath, Ethan made a decision. "I need to confront her," he said, his voice now steady and filled with resolve. He turned towards the conference room, where Lily and the rest of the family were likely waiting. As we walked, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of solidarity with Ethan. He was finally seeing the truth about his wife, just as I had seen the truth about my own family for years. When we reached the conference room, Ethan stepped inside first, his posture firm as he walked toward the center of the room. The atmosphere inside was tense, and the family members sitting there, my mother, father, and Lily, looked up in shock at his unexpected entrance. Ethan wasted no time. "Lily, I've seen the messages. I know what you've been saying behind my back, and I'm done with the lies." His words hung in the air, sharp and clear. The room fell silent as Lily's face turned pale, her eyes widening in realization. Ethan's words lingered in my mind as I stood there, uncertain of how to respond. His simple act of acknowledging me felt like a balm to the wound my family had opened. But before I could say anything, Ethan's mother, Celeste, appeared at the end of the hallway. She was a striking woman, always poised and confident, and her presence commanded attention. She looked between the two of us, sensing the tension in the air. "Ethan, I think we need to talk," she said, her tone steady, yet somehow softer than usual. Ethan turned to face her, his expression unreadable, and I could see the unease in his eyes. Without another word, Celeste handed him her phone. "You need to see this," she said, her voice low but urgent. Ethan took the phone hesitantly, his eyes scanning the screen before his face changed from confusion to something darker. Anger, perhaps even disbelief. I couldn't see what was on the phone, but I could feel the shift in the air as Ethan's grip tightened around the device. He looked up at me, his expression shaken. "I had no idea," he said, his voice barely a whisper. Celeste stepped closer, her gaze shifting between Ethan and me. "The truth can be hard to swallow," she said gently, "but I think you need to hear it, Ethan. Everything your wife has been hiding." Ethan turned back to the phone, scrolling through the messages that were clearly meant to stay hidden. What I had known for years, Lily's manipulation, was now coming to light, and Ethan was finally seeing his wife for who she truly was. I turned away, trying to hold back the tears that were threatening to fall. I walked slowly, my steps echoing in the vast, empty hallway. But before I could retreat further, I heard someone call my name. I turned, startled, and saw Ethan, the groom, standing by the door to the banquet hall. He was dressed in his tailored tuxedo, his tie loosened slightly, as if the day's events had already taken their toll on him. "Sarah," he said, his voice soft but firm, as if he were unsure of how to approach me. "What are you doing out here?" I gave him a half-hearted smile, trying to mask the sadness, but he could see right through me. "I'm just taking a break," I replied, shrugging as if it didn't matter, but Ethan stepped closer, his eyes narrowing with concern. "Are you sure everything's okay? This doesn't seem like you." I paused for a moment, considering whether I should tell him the truth, but something in his gaze made me feel like I could. "It's nothing," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. But then, as if it were a sudden release of built-up frustration, I added, "It's just hard, you know? To feel like I'm always on the outside of this family. No matter how hard I try, I'm never enough for them." Ethan's expression softened, and he stepped closer, his hand reaching out, but not quite touching me. "I don't know what's going on with your family, but I see you. I know you, and you deserve to be seen." The sincerity in his words hit me harder than I expected. I felt a flicker of something deep inside, something I hadn't felt in a long time. "Hope," I tried again, holding my breath and fighting back the wave of emotions threatening to spill over. "Mom, can we talk? Just for a minute?" I repeated, my voice steady but filled with a sense of urgency. This time she glanced up, but only briefly, before turning back to adjust Lily's dress. "Not now, Sarah," she muttered, clearly annoyed. The dismissiveness in her tone stung more than I had expected. My hands clenched into fists, but I forced myself to keep calm. I looked at Lily, whose smile was almost too sweet, and I couldn't help but feel the bitterness creeping up inside me. "I was seated in the hallway," I said, my voice quieter now, hoping for at least some acknowledgement. But Lily only shrugged, her eyes gleaming with a satisfaction I couldn't quite understand. "It's no big deal, Sarah," she said, her voice dripping with a saccharine sweetness. "It was probably just a mix-up. Don't make a scene." The words hit me like a slap in the face, but I tried to hold it together. I turned back to my mother, hoping to see some hint of remorse, but she just sighed. "You should be grateful you were even invited," she said, her voice cold. "Don't ruin your sister's big day." Her words were a knife in my heart. Grateful? For what? For being treated like an outsider in my own family. My chest burned with the weight of it all, and I knew, deep down, that this wasn't just about the seat. It was about how they had always treated me, like I didn't truly belong. As I sat there, staring at the ornate door leading into the main banquet hall, I tried to hold back my tears, but the hurt was overwhelming. I couldn't stop thinking about how my mother and sister were inside, laughing, enjoying the celebration, while I was left to sit by myself, forgotten. I couldn't help but feel like I was invisible to them. My mother had always been close to Lily, and I had accepted it for years. But this felt different. It wasn't just a momentary oversight. It felt like a deliberate decision to push me away. I stood up, my heels clicking softly against the cold marble floor, and walked toward the main hall. I had to speak to my mother, to somehow make her understand that this wasn't okay. As I approached, I saw her standing next to Lily, both of them adjusting Lily's veil, laughing together as if the world outside of them didn't exist. I swallowed my frustration and walked up to her. "Mom, can I talk to you for a second?" I asked, my voice steady but desperate for attention, but my mother barely acknowledged me. "Not now, Sarah, we're busy," she snapped, brushing me off without a second glance. I stood there for a moment, stunned by her coldness. I felt as if I were standing on the outside, looking in. This was supposed to be a joyous day, but I was beginning to wonder if I would ever be seen as more than just an afterthought in their eyes. I tried to stay calm as I walked toward the hallway area, but my heart was pounding in my chest. The further I walked from the main banquet hall, the more distant I felt from everything happening inside. The hallway was quiet, and the only sounds were the faint murmurs from the main event and the clinking of silverware. It was as if I had been relegated to a separate world, one that had nothing to do with the celebration of my sister's wedding. My seat was next to the coat rack, surrounded by empty space, and the place card with my name written in elegant cursive felt like a slap in the face. I glanced around and saw that the hallway was completely isolated from the warmth and laughter of the main event. The feeling of being overlooked weighed heavily on me. I told myself that maybe this was just a mistake, that maybe there wasn't enough space inside for me. But deep down, I knew the truth. My family had chosen to leave me out. I could see my parents sitting at the head table with Lily, their laughter echoing across the room, while I was left in the cold, both literally and figuratively. The sting of rejection cut deeper as I watched my sister surrounded by her friends, her new husband's colleagues, all of them welcomed and included. But me? I was just a shadow, sitting alone in the hallway, away from it all, and I couldn't help but wonder if I would ever truly belong in their world. The wedding was held in a stunning lakeside resort in Lake Tahoe, California, known for its breathtaking views and elegant gardens. The grand banquet hall had soaring glass ceilings that allowed natural light to flood the room, illuminating the sparkling chandeliers hanging above. It was the kind of place where everything seemed perfect, designed to create lasting memories. Guests were mingling, admiring the floral arrangements and sharing laughter, but I couldn't help feeling out of place. As soon as I walked in, I noticed how beautifully everything had been set up, but it didn't feel like my day. It was Lily's day, and I had long accepted my role as the less favored sister. The staff greeted me with a professional smile as they guided me toward the reception area. I wasn't looking for attention, but the deeper I ventured into the venue, the more it became clear that I was an afterthought. My eyes searched for my family, and I finally saw my parents, seated at the head table with Lily and her close friends. The table was elegantly decorated, surrounded by guests in fine attire, all seated under the glittering chandeliers. But my name wasn't on the seating chart for any of the inside tables. Instead, I was directed to the hallway area, just outside the main hall, near the coat check. There, I was expected to sit, separate from everyone else. The whole situation left me feeling invisible, as if I were nothing more than an afterthought in my own family's celebration. Seated in the hallway at my own sister's wedding, I knew I was nothing but an outsider. But when I confronted my mother, I wasn't prepared for the shocking truth that followed, the truth that would shatter the very foundation of our family. What would you do when the lies unravel? Let me know in the comments. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of the day I realized I had never truly belonged in my own family. It all started at my sister Lily's wedding, which was held at a luxurious lakeside resort in Lake Tahoe, California. Known for its stunning flower-filled gardens and grand banquet halls with towering glass windows, the venue set the perfect scene for what was supposed to be a beautiful day. I arrived with a simple intention: to celebrate my sister, smile for a few photos, and play the role of the loving older sister. It wasn't about me. It was her day, and I had long accepted that I was not the favorite child. I pulled up to the resort in my car, my nerves fluttering as the valet opened the door. I smoothed my navy blue dress, the only one I felt was fancy enough for the occasion, and took a deep breath. I wasn't trying to stand out. I just wanted to be part of the celebration. But as soon as I stepped inside, things quickly took a turn. The receptionist greeted me with a bright smile, but I could see the hesitation in her eyes as she scanned the guest list. After a moment, she looked up, her smile faltering, and told me that I had been assigned a seat in the hallway area, just outside the banquet hall, near the coat check. I was stunned, but I tried to brush it off. I didn't expect this level of coldness from my own family,